So I'm Rachel Henderson and I'm a speech and language therapist. So after I did my A-levels, I didn't know what I was going to do at university. So there was sort of a voluntary project that was going on where I could go and volunteer at a children's respite home. So I did that for, I don't know, 6 months, something like that. And then my cousin needed speech and language therapy in Hong Kong. So when I went over there as a holiday, I just decided to go along and sort of see what speech and language therapy was about. And I really enjoyed it. So I just thought, oh, well, maybe I'll go down that route. Yeah. So when I got back from Hong Kong, I decided to research on different courses, and obviously it's a specific speech and language therapy course at uni. So you either do an undergraduate, which is 4 years long, or a postgraduate, which is 2 years. I didn't get a chance to get through to the undergraduate course, so I managed to sort of do subjects in the undergraduate course that related to the postgraduate speech and language course, which are things like English and psychology. So I did that in my undergrad, and then I did my postgrad in speech and language therapy. Every day is different, but typically you would know what your appointments are. So I would go to a school or I would go to the clinic, and I would get there a bit earlier, prep up my resources, find out what the children are that I'm seeing. And obviously this would be different if I was working with adults, for example, but I work with children, so we go into the base and then we sort out our resources, and then we go and see children within their classes, or if they're appointments in clinics, then mums and dads will bring in the children and then we see them at clinic. And then after the appointment we write up notes or write up reports and give recommendations, and then we see the next one, and it just goes until the end of the day. So a session would roughly be about 45 minutes to an hour, depending on the child's attention span. And then, so when the child comes in, if it's a new child, if it's a new referral, it would be an assessment with the child and a conversation with the carers. And then we would then have a discussion with the carers about what types of intervention would be best for the child. It might be that the child is fine and we give mum and dad, just a few tips on what to do afterwards. Or it might be that they need a bit more intervention, and actually we need to have a discussion with the nurseries or schools about how to move that forward, and give strategies to them as well to work with the children. Yeah. I think the most satisfying part is when you've been trying to work with a child for a long, long time and you're not seeing much progress, and then all of a sudden it clicks and they've made progress, and that's down to you, and that's down to the way that you've worked with the staff or the way that you've worked with the families. And it's not just about the child, it's about all the people that are involved with that child, and us all working together to make this child make progress. And I think that, things like if a child isn't able to ask for a drink, very basic functional communication, and then at the end of the day they're able to ask for a drink, whether it be sign language, whether it be using symbols or pictures or their words, you've been able to achieve that for that child. So yeah, it's really satisfying. I think the most challenging thing about our job at the moment, especially in the climate that we live in now, is there's not enough funding. There's so much need out there for us, and there's so many children that need speech and language therapy, that there isn't enough for us to go around to every single child that needs it. So I think that for for me is the most challenging thing, is knowing that there is a lot of need, but not being able to fulfill that need. I think that's the toughest thing for me, and not feeling that I can do my job properly to the fullest. Yes, so you have to do a degree in speech and language therapy to be able to be a speech and language therapist. Whether it be an undergraduate course or a postgraduate course, you have to do either one of those to be able to be a speech therapist. You have to be patient, you have to be flexible. I think that you have to have a good personable character. I think that you need to be organised in some way, and carefree, I think. You know, just to know that some days are just not going to go okay, but that's fine. You know, you can skip past that, and because you're going to have days which are not going to be okay, and days where you don't feel like you're making progress with the children. But there are going to be days which are going to be great, and you have to see. I think you have to see past the negative to get to the positive. And also working with so many different other professionals, especially with teachers and with schools. Some schools might not understand your role, and it's just trying to educate people about, you know, your role and what we do with the children and how we help them. I hated school. When I was little, I used to cry and cry and cry to the point where the teachers had to come and get my mum to pick me up. And I absolutely hated school until probably I was 10. And then I was always a quiet person at school, very shy, didn't really like, you know, I wasn't very loud, I didn't like putting my hand up in class. And until I was about, after GCSEs, I think, I started to really enjoy school. So quite a lot of it I didn't really enjoy. I think it was because there was a lot of pressure at school. I went to a private school and there was a lot of workload put on you, long hours, and I played music, so that was an added pressure. So yeah, just wasn't really a fan of school. So I obviously interact with teachers, I interact with the TAs in schools, the head teachers, all the teaching staff in schools. Speech and language therapists also interact with occupational therapists, physiotherapists, consultants, paediatricians, you know, a range of the medical world, because you never know what diagnosis the child has when they first come to you. So you might, you know, they might be a quite complex child, and you might have to interact with all the professionals that are involved with that child. Yeah, so it's quite broad, really. So you obviously start as what in the NHS a band 5, so you're newly qualified, and there's always there's just, you keep going up basically when there are opportunities to, until you get to about band 7, which is sort of managerial level, and then band 8 is where you're completely a manager. So really there are about 4 levels that you can go up to, and within those bandings there are chances to specialise in specific areas that you're interested in as well, so there is always scope to expand. And I think that, you know, if you're working within the government or working within the councils or the NHS, and you're within a specific client group. So for example, myself, I'm in schools, but I love early years. So in my private work, I do early years work. So you know, you can kind of choose what you want to do in terms of your specialisms and your interests. That it's very hard work. It's challenging, and I think that I wish I knew the current climate of what we're living in at the moment. I think in terms of funding, I think that's the biggest thing at the moment, because we're so overstretched, and we just need therapists. We always need therapists, so be a therapist. I just think it's really rewarding, and I think that we just need more of us. So if you even think that you want to try it out, just do it, because I think you'll get a lot from it. It's worth going to see various settings, you know, whether you go to an appointment, whether you go to a special school, whether you go to a hospital ward. See different areas, because speech and language therapy is just so vast. You know, there are so many areas that you can go into. You know, on one of my placements, I went on a voice clinic. You know, with adults who are transgenders. You know, and that's so interesting. And there are so many areas that you can explore within speech and language therapy. So, yeah, I think it's definitely an area to try and